Let's take a look at the basics of C++ program. Every C++ program has a few main components. So in this video we will take a look at those key components that are part of every C++ program, and then later on in other examples we will expand the C++ program to see what other things you can do in C++. So in front of you is uh, a very simple basic C++ program, and we'll go over this program line by line to see what each line actually means. The first line says pound include angle bracket iostream close angle bracket. The second line says using namespace standard. The third line says int main open close parentheses start curly brace. Then the fourth line says cout. Two angle brackets, actually they're taken together, and these are called the stream insertion operator. And within double quotes is hello how are you backslash n close double quote semicolon. Then the fifth line says return 0 semicolon, and the sixth line says close curly braces. In this program, other than the line number 4 which says cout within double quotes hello how are you backslash n, all other lines are used in just about every C++ program. They are component of just about every C++ program, and it's very rarely you'll see a C++ program that doesn't has those other lines. The line in the line number 4, cout hello how are you, actually is the code inside a C++ program, and different programs may have different codes. So now we will go over each of these lines individually, starting from the very top line pound include iostream all the way to the closing curly brace, that is the last line of this program, and we will see that what each of these lines actually specifically means. The first line that we have in the program is pound include iostream. iostream, as you can notice, is within the angle brackets, and what this means is that this is actually what is called a preprocessor directive, and a preprocessor directive is used for something called the preprocessor, whose job is to modify the C++ program in such a way that it can be executed later on. Okay, so pound include iostream. Include is the English word include. iostream is actually a directive to include input output stream library, and what this line will do is later on when the program is being prepared for execution, code from the input output stream library uh, will be included into the program, physically added to the program, and that will allow this program to be able to uh, show display information, and also accept input from the user. The next line is called using namespace standard. Using is the English word using. Namespace is a technical word for library in C++, and standard.std is the default built-in library in your C++ installation. So whether you're using Visual Studio, or you're using code blocks, or some other integrated development environment, there is a built-in library called the std library, and this built-in library has code for a lot of things which are routinely done or routinely used in every C++ program. So in order to save time and effort, there is a pre-compiled code already uh, stored in the std library, and we can borrow that code from the std library. So as we saw in the previous line, iostream is part of the std library, and input output code displaying output or accepting input from the user are used in just about every C++ program. Therefore we have pre-built-in code in the iostream part of the std library. So what we're saying is, if you take the two lines together, pound include iostream using namespace standard, meaning get the iostream part from the namespace or library called standard and include that at the appropriate location, which will be done later on when the program is being prepared for execution. So therefore, when you create a C++ program, you don't really have to write every line of code that you will actually need. A lot of code that is routine, for example, displaying output, accepting input, file operations, a lot of things which are routine in every C++ program, you don't have to write. We simply borrow that code from the std library, and later on when the program is being prepared for execution, the code that we borrow from the std library will be borrowed and placed in your code so that that code can be used in the program. You only have to write the code that is specific and unique to your application. So you don't have to write the code to display output, you don't have to write the code to accept input, but you do have to write the code that will be unique and specific to your application, and that code must be written manually by the programmer and typed into the program. After using namespace standard is a line that says int space main open close parentheses opening curly brace or a left pointing curly brace. Int main open close parentheses is the main function in C++. In C++, almost all code is written in functions. These are groupings of code. One function that is required in every C++ program is called the main function. Without a main function, you can't create a C++ program. So the name of the function or the key function in C++ is the main function, and it's lowercase. C++, uppercase, lowercase makes a lot of difference, right? So it's lowercase main, not mixed case or uppercase main. After main is open close parentheses. Every function name is followed by open close parentheses, but they are not always empty. Sometimes they contain information that is required by the function to do its job. In this particular case, these open close parentheses are empty, which means main function in this particular case, though sometimes it does take some information. In this particular case, there is nothing that the main function needs to do its job. Before the main is the int. Int you can think of as sort of its classification of this function. That is, this function there you are putting an int. Normally what you put before the function name is called its return type. So int is kind of a return type, and without going too deep into the theory of functions, you can just at this particular time just assume that main function, before the main function you have to put an int. After the open close parentheses is a starting curly brace or opening curly brace. As we just discussed that a function is a grouping of code, that grouping is normally grouped using starting opening curly brace and a closing curly brace. So that tells the compiler that executes the program that the code within these curly braces is actually part of a function, in this particular case the main function. So in C++, every program needs the main function. Every C++ program normally begins at the main function, and before the main function we write int. After the name main we write open close parentheses, and after the open close parentheses we write the starting curly brace. So starting curly brace is essentially a message to the compiler that will later execute the program that the code that follows the starting curly brace belongs to the main function. Okay, so keep in mind main function is a required or mandatory function in every C++ program. The next line, or line number 4, says cout two angle brackets, they are taken together, they are called the stream insertion operator. Then we have a double quote, then we have the message that the program is intending to display, hello comma how are you, question symbol, backslash n, close double quote, semicolon. This is the application code of the program. This is essentially what the programmer wants the program to do. There's only one line here. Basically, it's a very simple program, displays exactly one line, and that one line that the program intends to display is hello, how are you? So we will break down this line word by word and see what each of the individual words in this line actually means. First word in line number 4 is cout. Cout is code in C++ to display output on the screen. So what this really tells the compiler to do is that whatever follows after the two angle brackets or the stream insertion operator, display that on the screen exactly the way it is. So cout is available to us because of, if you may remember, pound include iostream. So the iostream part of the std library allows us to use the cout, which is essentially a code in C++ to display output on the screen. So whatever follows cout, stream insertion operator, will be displayed on the screen exactly the way it is. After cout, we have two angle brackets. As we mentioned, these are called stream insertion operators. In C++, we use these symbols a lot. They are called operators, and these operators act on other things that surround them on the left or on the right or on both. And the purpose of the stream insertion operator is to essentially execute what the cout is telling the compiler, that whatever follows the stream insertion operator should be displayed on the screen. In this case, what follows the stream insertion operator is actually an English message, or a message in English, hello comma how are you. Okay, so stream insertion operator is an operator that allows cout to display message on the screen. One thing you will notice is that our message in English, which is hello comma how are you question symbol backslash n, is within double quotes. In C++, English messages or text in English must be enclosed within these double quotes. It's a requirement. So it's a C++ rule that English text should always be enclosed within double quotes. So that's the reason the message is within double quotes. You will also notice a symbol that is not part of the message, but it is there. It's called backslash n. Backslash n is called the new line escape character. Backslash lowercase n should be lowercase. And what this symbol does is it essentially introduces a line break after this line. So if there is more text that you want to display after hello how are you, backslash n will make sure that the text that you want to display after hello how are you is not displayed next to this message, but rather on the next line. So backslash n essentially introduces a line break so that whatever text follows or output follows should go to the next line and not be displayed on the same line as this message. After our cout statement, line number 4, line number 5 simply says return space 0 semicolon. Return space 0 is program terminator. This must be the last line inside the main function. There should be no code after return 0 because the program stops execution and the control returns back to the operating system when the program encounters return 0. So therefore this is always the very last line in the main function, and this is essentially a message that the program is completed and now the program should end and the control should be returned back to the operating system. The very last line of this program is a closing curly brace or a right pointing curly brace, in C++, every time we start a curly brace, we must also close a matching curly brace. So the starting curly braces point to the left and the closing curly braces point to the right. So we had started a curly brace after int main, open close parenthesis, start curly brace. Therefore, we must close or match or balance that opening curly brace with the closing curly brace, and the closing curly brace is after return space 0. So unless we close the opening curly brace, the program will remain open-ended, meaning there will be no end in this case to the main function. So in this case, the closing curly brace is confining the code belonging to the main function. So the starting curly brace is right after open close parentheses, and the closing curly brace is placed where the main function ends. So this kind of confines or delimits what is the code belonging to the main function. One thing you will notice is that we are using semicolons at the end of a few lines, but not in after some lines. Normally speaking, a semicolon is a requirement in C++ because a semicolon is a statement terminator. A statement is one complete line of code. So normally when you write a code inside a function, for example here in the main function, you will realize pretty much every line ends with a semicolon, because if you skip out on the semicolon, then the line never ends, it keeps on going. But there is a confusing aspect that some lines don't need semicolon, like the very first line of this program doesn't need a semicolon, second line needs a semicolon, int main open close parenthesis starting curly brace does not need a semicolon, but the lines inside the function need a semicolon. So we learn by practice in C++ which lines need semicolons and which lines don't need semicolons. As a general rule, most of the code that you would write inside the main function will need a semicolon. So once again, semicolon is a statement terminator. It terminates a statement, tells the compiler this line is completely done, and move on to the next line. Right? So you learn with practice where exactly you need a semicolon and where you don't need a semicolon. Most of the lines will need a semicolon. So this was a very brief introduction to a C++ program. The program displays a line on the screen which is out in the cout. Cout displays output on the screen. So the line displayed on the screen will be what is within the double quotes, except the \n, which is a new line escape character, right? It basically introduces a line break. So the output of this program would be hello, how are you? So hope you guys learned some C++ programming by watching this video.